During his press conference following the US Open semifinal, Frances Tiafoe said that he believed he was the better player compared to Taylor Fritz, the actual winner. When Tiafoe took a 2-1 lead, it seemed as though he was on the verge of making history as the first African-American men's US Open finalist since Arthur Ashe in 1972. However, at the end of the fourth set, Tiafoe's performance drastically declined. While it appeared that his physical condition was the obvious issue, Tiafoe later revealed that there was more to the story. Hey, my name is Christian Bassnight and welcome to Christian's Court, where I cover tennis from all angles. If you have not yet already, make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell so you're notified whenever I post more edgy tennis content like this. Taylor Fritz defeated Frances Tiafoe 4-6, 7-5, 4-6, 6-4, 6-1 to become the first American male slam singles finalist since Andy Roddick reached the Wimbledon Championship in 2009. I was kind of surprised that Frances even won the first set, especially since he went down early and he trailed Love 3 going down the early break. Neither guy really played that great at that point, including Fritz himself, despite him holding the advantage, as he really was aided by Tiafoe coming out the flatter of the two. But once Frances settled in a little bit more, it became clear that he was the better player for the first half of the match at least. Fritz's serving was not the same that we've seen it from him thus far in this tournament, and Tiafoe took advantage as he broke twice to allow 4 consecutive games to go up the break at 4-3. Tiafoe maintained that break lead for the remainder of the opening set, but he not only served better than Taylor did, but Frances was much stronger from the ground, and that had not even been the case in their previous 6 or 7 matchups. Fritz's strokes didn't have that same oomph in them that we've seen from him once again in rounds prior, and a lot of his shots landed really short in the court, and Tiafoe was the aggressor here. It's also worth noting that Tiafoe had kind of the overwhelming crowd support, which it's not surprised that most or many of the fans cheered for him, but to me at least, it seemed like 70% of Arthur Ashe crowd was pulling for Tiafoe. Some of that I think has to do with him starting out slower and the crowd pulling for him to kind of make this more of a match and make the first set more competitive, which he definitely did. Then the other side of it too, Tiafoe is technically the bigger star of the two. I feel like a lot more celebrities and influencers were out there, and thus they knew more about Frances and his story, and so they were pulling for him. In the second set, Taylor was big dog, especially on his serve, only losing one single service point. Frances held his own too until that 5-6 game, where the first serve really eluded him and Taylor took complete advantage, stepping up and going on the offensive on the 20th seed whenever he had that second serve look, and that led to a break at love. What's interesting is that Taylor only improved his first serve percentage by 3 percentage points in that second set compared to the first set, but he still only dropped that 1 point behind his serve. For one, he was more solid from the ground behind that serve, and he did a much better job of spreading the court and really getting Tiafoe on the move and out of position. Now, Frances' returning definitely could have stood to improve in that second set. I thought he let Taylor off the hook too many times, even though Tiafoe held relatively comfortably. I thought that giving Taylor those love holds consistently and not making him work nearly hard at all, and his service game surely gave the 12th seed some added confidence. Frances, though, immediately did a better job of landing more returns in the opening game of the third set, breaking Fritz right off the bat. Tiafoe only made 44% of his first serves in, but he won 91% of first serve points as well as 71% of second serve points in set number 3. It was similar to the first set in terms of how the points were going. Taylor became a little bit more error prone in that third set, while Tiafoe had that fine balance and blend of being patiently aggressive, which is why he ended up with 5 fewer unforced errors compared to Taylor. Frances also started going a little bit more back behind Taylor, using that backhand up the line, which I thought was a great play. Even though Frances won the third set, I once again felt that Frances let Taylor off the hook. He has some slight openings to break for a second time in that third set, namely at 3-5, where he pushed Fritz to 30 all, but he made some kind of sloppy mistakes to let Taylor escape. I think that break could have been crucial, as it would have given Frances the edge and him serving first to start off the fourth set. Now, going into that fourth set at 1-all, I believe that was a huge missed chance for Frances to break. He got to 30 all, but those initial 2 points Foe lost were missed returns on a second serve. Again, nobody is perfect. You're not going to make every single second serve return, but I feel like nonetheless that was a big missed opportunity. 2-all was an even bigger missed chance for Tiafoe, as he missed a very makeable return at love 15 before making a backhand unforced error up 15-30. Then at 30-all, he shanked a forehand while having Fritz on the ropes, and then Fritz sealed the game with an unreturnable serve. Still, Frances was doing very well on his serve and holding relatively comfortably, and he still showed that he was the better player of the two, and it felt like it was really only a matter of time until he would break and get that first strike. But at 4-5, 40-15, that's when all the wheels for Tiafoe fell off, and we really saw a complete collapse from Big Foe. He double faulted twice from 40-15 up, and then he shanked a forehand before kind of throwing away the set with a very poor drop shot. That was the match right there, to be honest, because that took all the wind out of Frances's sails, and it contributed to him being broken twice right off the bat to open out the 5th set. He did get one break back, but that was short-lived, as he surrendered it right back the following game to send Fritz through to the final. Tiafoe spent 3 hours longer on court compared to Taylor, even heading into the semifinal, so it makes sense that he might have been struggling a bit more physically in the latter stages of the match. Frances said himself, though, that he was actually cramping a bit at that 4-5 point in the 4th set, likely due to the nerves of him coming so close to making the final yet again.
5-4 and 40-15 go double-double. And I'm getting broken there, but I kind of felt there out of nowhere. I guess, just weird cramps out of nowhere. When I felt fine, it wasn't even really warm nor humid tonight. Again, I just think the moment definitely I got ahead of myself, and something I'm definitely going to learn from. But, I promise it's probably not going to happen to me again.
In addition to the weight of the occasion and Frances's court time, I think that the 6-1 head-to-head edge in Fritz's favor played a role here mentally. Fritz likely had that mental edge of beating Frances 6 times and having that belief of, even though I'm down and out, or not really down and out, but even though I'm down in this match, I've beaten Frances 6 times in a row, and I can definitely do it again. And meanwhile, I felt like it was a much bigger hump for Tiafoe to overcome there, high key. And I questioned whether Frances truly believed in his core and his mind that he could beat Taylor, even though he was playing better. Also, I think Fritz had the confidence from achieving bigger things as far as winning a 1,000 title and winning a 500. Mind you, Frances's 3 titles that he's earned thus far were all 250s. And I think that would have been a much bigger step up from him and making a slam final as opposed to Taylor. And then maybe perhaps the biggest factor is that Tiafoe was playing for more history than Fritz was. There is added pressure for Big Foe as a black man. In the Breakpoint docuseries, him and his girlfriend kind of talked about the pressure that he feels trying to carry the weight of there being such a void of not only black players, but especially black men in tennis. Arthur Ashe, of course, I think he still is the last black man, African-American man, to win a Grand Slam. And then Frances was bidding to become the first black man in 28 years since Malavi Washington made the Wimbledon finals to make a Grand Slam final, period. That is a lot of weight to carry. And Venus and Serena, they were able to kind of do it together. They were kind of able to share that weight. Coco Gauff, of course, she became a Grand Slam champion. Sloane Stephens did as well. But those two, their triumphs came when Venus and Serena were still relatively active, or they weren't too far removed from winning slams themselves. Once again, Frances Tiafoe, the gap between the last black man, African-American man to win a slam and him was much larger. And like Billie Jean King said, pressure is a privilege. And Tiafoe knows this, but it's still a lot of pressure still to overcome, trying to be such a trailblazer for, so many different types of people. Now, the big question for me, at least, remains, will Tiafoe be in this position again, and can he get over that hump and not only make a final, but go all the way and win a major? I think that he can. I feel like he showed us in this tournament that he has the game, and then +2, he's always had the game. But the biggest obstacle for Tiafoe, I think, was maintaining the focus. And he showed us that he has the focus, he has the mentality, and it's really something we've never seen from him thus far, being able to stay in there, point in and point out. We really never saw a notable let-up from Tiafoe. The only let-up we saw from him was really physically and then the pressure-wise, but he remained so focused and he was on a mission. And unfortunately, he didn't go all the way and accomplish that mission fully. but regardless, he should be so proud of how he played. I think that, though, also there needs to be a little bit of tweaks in his game that he and David Witt need to hit, especially on like improving that return. That return, notably, is the biggest thing or biggest improvement I think Tiafoe needs to make. He also needs to bring that same level of focus and intensity to all tournaments, just outside of the U.S. Open, and really just outside of the U.S. tournaments in general. Tiafoe, in his press conference after beating Grigor Dimitrov, he said that it's really hard for him to get up for the other tournaments as he does for the U.S. Open. And this made sense to why he's made the quarterfinals or better in his last 4 U.S. Opens. But he's got to bring that same type of energy to the other tournaments, even though when he might not have the crowd support. That separates the good players from the great players, and then from the Grand Slam champions, I feel like. I also think Tiafoe needs to kind of crawl before he walks and win a 500 or higher title. I think that will instill in him greater belief to where he can overcome the big pressure moments like we saw yesterday against Fritz. Now, looking ahead to Sunday's final between Taylor and Jannik Sinner, Sinner will be the huge favorite here, and I actually was going to be edgy and have Fritz pull off the upset, which I know sounds crazy. You know, he has beaten Sinner before. He tested him a lot in their last meeting, which was in the Indian Wells quarterfinal from last year. But then I had to remember that even though their last meeting was last year and Fritz did well to test him, that was before the Jannik Sinner 2.0 kicked in. And though the Italian isn't really playing his best tennis at the moment, per se, he has such an aura and self-belief about him that really gets him out of trouble in the tight moments. We've seen it throughout the entire tournament. Also, after rewatching the Tiafoe-Fritz match for a second time, I feel like although Taylor definitely improved in the end as far as his serving and overall ground strokes go, I don't think that Jannik will let Taylor off the hook as much as Frances did with some of those missed returns. The crowd can be an important factor in this match, but I do not think that Taylor will really maximize that aspect and take advantage of that as he really could have. It's really just not his personality to get the crowd engaged. We saw even in the Tiafoe match, the most he did was a big fist, and that was really just kind of to himself and to his box. He's not the type of player to really get the crowd, be like this, like Frances would or Coco would. Really, he should step out of his comfort zone and do more of that, but I still doubt that he will. It's just not in his forte. Both men have had impressive roads to the final. Jannik, he got edgy wins over another American, Tommy Paul, before beating Dino Medvedev, and of course Jack Draper. He beat Draper in straight sets in a crazy match. And then Fritz beat 3 Grand Slam finalists in Ruud, Zverev, and Berrettini before taking down Tiafoe. But I just think this matchup simply favors Jannik. Jannik simply does mostly everything a bit better than Taylor. He is a better mover than Fritz. He is better from the ground, more solid from the ground, and he's the better volleyer. The one edge that I might give Fritz is his serve, and even that isn't much of an edge. That's because not only is Taylor, his serving was a little bit spotty in that semifinal against Tiafoe, but Sinner is an excellent returner. Fritz has to have a flawless serving day and be on point whenever he has just a sliver of an opening here. He's really shown us so much fight and heart, not only in this tournament, but his entire career. But I don't know if Taylor can pull that off in the biggest match of his career in his life, and trying to finally end the talks of who's going to be the next American man to win a slam. It's 21 years since Andy Roddick lifted the trophy here. That's going to be a lot of pressure on him too. I definitely think that he can do it. He can be the one to end the title drought, and I think he has the best shot of doing it, of course, but I don't think it will happen on Sunday, and thus I will have Jannik taking this one in 4 sets. Do you think that Frances will compete in another slam semifinal and perhaps go further, or was this his last big missed opportunity? Also, can Fritz do the impossible and upset #1 Sinner? Leave your thoughts on the comments below, and make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post my great US Open wrap-up recap video. Thank you so much for watching and for your support, and I'll see y'all next time here on Christian's Court.